Right now, day and night, companies around the world are working to be the first to develop a vaccine for coronavirus. And already the discussion is becoming one about money. If a drug costs $10 to develop and produce, well, what should it be sold for? At cost price for $10? Or what about $20? Or should it be $200? $2,000? $20,000? Big drug companies are driving the research, and as private businesses, they are set to make a good deal of money from a vaccine. And many people, if not all, believe that a company should be allowed to make a profit. But of course, if a vaccine is developed by one company, which then controls the license to produce that drug, well, then that company is in a mighty powerful position. For whoever develops the first coronavirus vaccine will control the patent and, crucially, who gets to use it. Should a company sell to its own country first? Should it sell internationally to the highest bidder? What about poorer people, or indeed poorer countries? If they can't afford the vaccine, should we just let them die? How do we balance intellectual property rights with serving the public good? If you Google, you will find something called the Open COVID Pledge. And some organizations around the world have declared that, and I quote, "We pledge to make our intellectual property available free of charge for use in ending the COVID-19 pandemic and minimizing the impact of the disease." It's a beautiful statement, and it's supported by major companies like Facebook, Amazon, IBM, Microsoft, Mitsubishi, Uber, Morgan Stanley, and so on. But it remains to be seen whether the big drug companies, who of course have the most to lose from making such a pledge, will make their product available at cost price. In recent times, I think arguably one of the most generous gifts to the world is that of Tim Berners-Lee, who could have been the richest man in the world if he'd licensed his invention of the World Wide Web, the internet. But instead he gave it for free to the world. Berners-Lee has never profited directly from his invention. But what about the company which gets into pole position in the development of this vaccine? There will be a whole host of questions to ask. Indeed, in a previous assembly, I discussed what was meant by doing the right thing. One of the great researchers into moral thinking in the 20th century was Lawrence Kohlberg, and one of his famous propositions was what he called the Heinz dilemma. It's a famous story, and it's discussed in ethics and morality classes around the world. Here is Heinz's dilemma. Heinz's wife was dying. There was one drug that the doctors thought might save her. The drug had been developed by a pharmacist in Heinz's town, but the pharmacist was charging a lot of money for it, 100 times what it cost to make. Heinz couldn't afford to buy the drug, so he asked friends and relatives to lend him the money. But still, he only had half the money he needed. Heinz told the pharmacist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell the drug cheaper or let him pay later. But the pharmacist said, "No, I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it." Heinz got desperate and broke into the laboratory in order to steal the drug for his wife. Now, typically some of the questions that students of ethics might be asked are, should Heinz have stolen the drug? Would it change anything if Heinz did not love his wife? What if the person dying was a stranger? Would it make any difference? We may well see people or countries who cannot afford the coronavirus vaccine when indeed it is developed. What should the company do that develops the vaccine? Make it available at a price that can be afforded? Or let those who can't afford it die? These are uncomfortable questions, and questions that will undoubtedly fill our media and airwaves for some time to come. Girls and boys, what do you think?